Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you've already seen the community tab post, you will know that I decided to do a series on where I build a Remix app from scratch and show you everything I like and know about Remix. Well, this is the first part in that series, and today we'll be setting up a basic Remix project and adding the essentials we need for the future. So this will include Tailwind, Vite, Remix, Remix DevTools, Remix DevTools plugins, and I'll be going also over some basic things you need to know moving forwards so you can develop your apps more quickly and easily. So I plan for this series to be a collaborative effort, so I would really appreciate it if you guys commented down below what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see. If you need some explanations, I would be happy to do them. Just comment whatever you would find unclear, or you want to change something in the project. For example, you want to add a different styling method or something, we can talk about it and we can build this project together. That is my original idea. I don't plan to do this on my own, and I would really like some help from you guys. So without further ado, let's just start working on the project. And if you have any questions, like I said, comments down below. Alright, considering we'll be building everything with Remix, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the Remix website and we're gonna install a fresh instance of a new Remix project. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the docs and we're gonna go to the Vite section here. And if you look at the getting started section here, there's already a command that I can just copy, and I'll run this to set up an instance of a Remix Vite project. So something to keep in mind here, there are two ways of running a Remix project at the moment. The first one is using their old esbuild compiler that's inside of the Remix dev package, and also it's used by Remix.run to serve the assets if you don't use a custom server. But we're not gonna do that in this project, we're going to go with Vite. I've been using it ever since it came out, and I feel like it's stable enough for us to use, and at the time of the recording it's almost at the tail end of being unstable and should be stabilized in the upcoming weeks, so I don't think this is a bad choice to make at the moment. We're not gonna use the custom express server just yet. If I need it, I'll just create it during the runtime of this project that we're gonna build. And now that we have that covered, if you watched my What Remix.run is exactly video, you'll already know that Remix is basically a request handler, which means that Remix Vite is basically a plugin for Vite that creates a request handler, and whenever the Vite server gets a request, it sends it to Remix, and then Remix takes over as a request handler and then gives it back to Vite, and then Vite gives it back to the browser. So basically it's like a server, and it works pretty much like a custom server, but it can also do things like single page applications and stuff like that. In my experience, the custom compiler that they built was great, but this is 10 times faster and more reliable. There's no flag for the Remix team, it's just the fact that Vite is so more mature and has more resources put into it, and it's really an amazing tool to use. I also built a Vite plugin for Remix DevTools, and I'll also be using that in this project. So as somebody who has worked with Vite and their plugins and doing all the research I needed to do for the plugin and how to create it in Vite, I was just blown away by how Vite handles everything and how amazing it is. So highly recommend, if you're gonna start a new Remix project, you just start it with Vite. It's almost stable, you won't regret it, and I don't think you'll run into many issues at the moment. As I said, I've been using it ever since it came out, and from version 2.5 on, it's been pretty stable. Alright, so now that we have that covered, let's actually install it. So, what we're gonna do is copy the command here and paste it into our terminal, and then we'll see what it offers us, and we'll go over it together. Alright, now that we're here, let's paste in the command and run it, and we're gonna be asked what we want to call the directories. So let's call it Remix e-commerce. We want to initialize a Git repository, we want to install the dependencies, and we're just gonna wait for this to run. Alright, now that it's ran, let's open it up. Alright, so now that we're here, let's look at what we actually installed. So when you look at the dependencies, we have three things: Node, React, and Serve from Remix.run. And then we have the isBot, React, and React DOM. So isBot is used by Remix to figure out if a request is coming from a bot or not. So that's why it's in the dependencies. The other things from Remix are also required here. And we have React, obviously. So we're gonna add some new things here. But first of all, let's go through the dev dependencies. So we have types here, ESLint configured, TypeScript, and Vite. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open Vite config, and I want to add two things here. The first thing is the server. I want to change it to be open set to true. And what this is gonna do is when you run the server, it's actually going to open it in the browser automatically. So whenever you type npm run start here, it's going to open up the browser with your app already running. And the second thing I want to do is I want to add Remix development tools. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to npm install them, and I'm going to install them as a dev dependency. And now that I have magically moved time ahead, we're going to actually import Remix dev tools from Remix development tools / Vite. And I'm just gonna plug them in here as another plugin. I'm gonna save this. And another thing I want to note here is the tsconfig paths here. So what this does is basically it allows you to have imports like this in your app. So for example, code, and this will resolve using your tsconfig file. And if we go to the tsconfig file and see the paths here, we can see that we have an alias configured. Whenever we type this, it's going to resolve to this path. So that's what this plugin is for. Then we have the Remix and then the Remix DevTools. So that's my preferred Vite config. I might be adding more stuff along the way, but that's it for now because we really want to start simple. And if you look at tsconfig here, we can also see that the modular resolution is set to bundler. So that means that the bundler is going to decide what modular resolution is gonna use. And by default, there's going to be ECMAScript modules, and it's set to ESNext. So we're good to go with that. And if we look at the environment here, we set the types from Remix.run / node and the Vite client. So this allows us to have import.meta.anything typed because Vite / client provides these types. And then we have the Remix.run / node here that also gives us types that the Remix provides out of the box. And then we have the ESLint config. We're not gonna go too deeply into this, but it allows us to run a linter on our code. We'll probably dive into this a bit deeper later on. And then we have the public directory. All your public assets go into here. Then we have the routes here. So the root route is here. As you can see, because I installed Remix development tools, I've added it as a plugin here. And when you use Remix DevTools as a plugin, you don't really have to do anything besides that. It's already working. And we're just gonna save all the changes that we've done. And we're going to leave this route in for now. We just wanna start the app and see what we have. So let's do that now. As you can see, we already have a Remix app up and running. And if I open up the development tools here, we can see that it's already configured. If I hover over this, it's going to show us the route boundaries. So for example, this is our routes_index route, and this is our root route. And we can also look at the routes here. We have the settings. We're not gonna configure anything. I just use the default ones. And that's pretty much it for now. So we have our bare bones Remix app up. Now let's start adding stuff in. And now that we're back here, I'm gonna stop this, I'm gonna clear it, and we're gonna add Tailwind. So we're gonna run npm install tailwind css. And after we're done with that, we're just gonna initialize it. It created our tailwind config file for us. We're going to say that the content is everything in the app, and then we're gonna do TS and TSX, and we're gonna save that. So what I've added here is a plugins directory as well, and I'm gonna show you later on why I've done that. And as you can see, it's export default here, which is ECMAScript modules. If it was a CJS one, it would be module exports like this. This is the equivalent in CJS, but we're not gonna use that. And now that we've done this, we're going to add a tsconfig.json, and we're just gonna export default plugins, and we're gonna say tailwind and auto prefixer, and we're gonna save this, and we're gonna also install postcss and auto prefixer here. I'm gonna run this command, and I've added these packages as well. And now that I've done that, I can go back to the app here, and I'm gonna add a new file called tailwind.css. This can basically be named whatever you want. It doesn't have to be tailwind. It can be, I don't know, index CSS, global CSS, whatever. It just needs to have the tailwind directives. And we're just gonna import that here as a side effect. And that's pretty much all we have to do here. And I also inline it like this. That's a Vite specific thing. You can either import them as inline or URLs or whatever. And I'm gonna save this. And that's it for setting up Tailwind. Oh, and one more thing I realized. I created this as a TS file. You should create it as a JS one if you want to run it without TS Node. If you want to run it with TS Node, you can install TS Node as well and then run it that way. For now, for simplicity's sake, we're just gonna do this and run it as a JS file. And if we start and we go back to our app, we can see that our text has changed and it looks different. And for now, that's pretty good for us. We will go further later on, but the important thing is that Tailwind CSS is working and we changed the CSS here. So we're gonna go onwards and we're gonna add another thing to the project, and that thing is plugins for Remix DevTools. So I'm gonna create a plugins directory here. I'm going to go to my Vite config, and here I'm going to say plugin directory, and then I'm gonna say plugins here, and I'm gonna save this. And for now we don't have any plugins in the directory, obviously, so now let's go grab some plugins and add them to the directory. Alright, so not many people know this, but the GitHub repository of Remix DevTools, and full disclaimer here, I'm the person who created this, so I know a little bit more about it. But anyhow, the plugins directory inside of the GitHub repository has plugins for Remix DevTools, and we're gonna use both of these. So the first one is Tailwind Palette, and basically what this plugin allows you to do is it allows you to see all the Tailwind colors, and we're just gonna go here. I'm gonna click raw, and then I'm just gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna go back to my editor. I'm going to create a plugin here. I'm gonna call it Tailwind Palette.tsx, and I'm gonna paste in the code I copied from earlier, and that's all we have to do. So if I save this, Remix DevTools is automatically going to pick up everything you have in your plugins directory here, and it's going to automatically add it as another tab in your Remix DevTools. And the cool thing is, if you want to add your custom ones, you can also do that by just adding them into here, and then you have the documentation on the repository, but basically you need to export this specific object, and the Remix DevTools are gonna pick them up and show them for you. So now if we go back to the browser, and just another thing to note here is that you have to restart your dev server for the DevTools to pick up the plugins. or you need to hot reload it. But the important thing is when you go to the browser here and you open up the DevTools, you're gonna see the color palette has been added as a plugin here. So now that we open it, it has all the colors that the Tailwind has, and we can basically click on these and copy them into our clipboard, and then we can paste them in our code as we want. And you can basically play around with the stylings, do whatever you want, because it's in your code base, so you don't have to really do much. And now we have that plugin, so let's add the icon library as well. So if we go back to the Remix DevTools GitHub repository where we got this plugin, we're gonna go back, we're going to close this folder and open up the icon library, and we're gonna open up this file called icon library tsx. We're gonna row it again, and we're gonna copy this as well, and we're gonna go back to our Visual Studio Code. We're gonna create another plugin here called icon library.tsx, and we're gonna paste this in. So this plugin allows you to see all your icons in your project. We need to complete these to-dos, and we're not gonna do that right now, and we're just gonna ignore this file for now, but we're gonna save this, and we'll do this a bit later. But what this allows us to do is basically see all the icons in the project, change their text and color, and then copy them from our plugin into our application. But we don't have icons set up yet, so we'll do that a little bit later. But that's it for now, and we also added this plugin as well, and we're good to go. Alright, and now we have our basic setup up, and I think this is a good place to end for now. And one thing that I need to also note here is that we have the type set to module. This is for ECMAScript modules, and this tells package managers and other things that you're using ECMAScript and not Commons.js. If you delete this, it turns into CJS, and then you have to change a lot of stuff. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's it for now. Alright, we've set up Tailwind, Vite, plugins, and Remix DevTools. We've gone over our config files, and we're ready to start working on the next features. In my next video, I'll be going over the icons and how to set them up in our project, and we'll be fixing up the plugin we said isn't working. I'll also add some scripting functionalities so we can inject environment variables into our scripts, and we'll do some cool things with those scripts. If you have any suggestions on how to improve this series, or you would like to contribute in some way, let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to reply. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!